What if the person you're constantly thinking about has already reached a decision about your place in their life without saying a single word? What if the answer isn't hidden in a text message, a social media post, or a conversation, but in a subtle psychological pattern you've overlooked? Many people spend years searching for certainty in love, while ignoring the quiet language of the unconscious. The mind reveals truths long before words ever do. Today, we'll explore one powerful sign that often appears when a deep emotional bond reaches its turning point. This isn't about predicting the future or chasing fantasies. It's about understanding the hidden forces that shape human connection and recognizing what your own inner world is trying to show you before it's too late. Many people believe that the most important decisions in love happen during a conversation, a confession of feelings, a breakup, or a promise about the future. Yet the human mind rarely works that way. Long before words are spoken, something much deeper has already begun moving beneath the surface. Thoughts, emotions, and hidden desires quietly organize themselves until one day they emerge into conscious awareness. By the time someone finally says, "I can't do this anymore," or "I want to be with you," that decision has often been forming for weeks, months, or even years. This hidden process is why so many people are shocked by outcomes that, in hindsight, left countless subtle clues. The same principle applies to your own inner world. There are moments when you sense that something has changed in a relationship, even though you cannot explain why. Nothing dramatic has happened. No argument has taken place. No clear evidence appears before you. Yet a quiet feeling settles within you, almost like an invisible current pulling your attention toward a truth you are not ready to accept. Most people dismiss this feeling because they cannot prove it logically. They search for facts, messages, or reassurance instead. But the deeper mind communicates in impressions long before it speaks in certainty. This inner awareness should not be confused with fear, insecurity, or wishful thinking. Anxiety creates endless stories, constantly imagining the worst possible outcome. Genuine intuition feels different. It is surprisingly calm. It does not scream for attention or force you into panic. Instead, it quietly returns again and again, asking you to notice what your conscious mind keeps overlooking. The challenge is that the ego prefers certainty. It wants clear answers, immediate explanations, and guarantees that eliminate uncertainty. The unconscious offers none of these. It simply presents gentle signals and waits patiently for you to recognize their meaning. Think about how often you have looked back on an important relationship and realized that you already knew something was changing long before you admitted it to yourself. Perhaps conversations gradually lost their warmth. Maybe moments of silence began feeling heavier than before. Or perhaps you noticed yourself changing in subtle ways, becoming more reflective, more distant, or strangely peaceful without understanding the reason. At the time, these experiences seemed disconnected. Only later did they reveal themselves as pieces of a much larger pattern. The deeper mind is remarkably skilled at recognizing patterns that the conscious mind overlooks. It notices changes in emotional rhythm, consistency, attention, and presence. While your rational mind is busy analyzing words, the unconscious quietly observes what remains unspoken. It compares today's emotional atmosphere with countless memories stored beneath awareness, detecting shifts too subtle for ordinary thinking. This is why certain feelings seem to appear without explanation. They are not arriving from nowhere. They are the result of countless unnoticed experiences gathering into a single realization that has not yet reached the surface of conscious thought. Once the deeper mind begins recognizing what is happening, another important realization slowly comes into view. Most people place enormous importance on words while overlooking the emotional patterns that surround them. They replay conversations over and over, searching for hidden meanings in every sentence. They analyze every text message, every emoji, every delayed reply, hoping to discover certainty. Yet words can be influenced by fear, guilt, obligation, or confusion. A person may say what they think they should say, rather than what they truly feel. This is why actions repeated over time reveal far more than promises made in a single moment. When someone has reached an important emotional decision, their energy often changes before their language does. They may still smile, still be polite, and still maintain familiar routines, but something essential feels different. Their attention becomes inconsistent. Their curiosity fades. Conversations that once flowed naturally begin to feel forced. The emotional warmth that once existed is replaced by distance that cannot easily be explained. These changes are usually subtle, which is why they are so easy to dismiss. The heart wants reassurance, so it often interprets temporary moments of closeness as proof that nothing has changed, even when the overall pattern points in another direction. The human mind has a remarkable ability to create comforting stories when reality feels painful. Instead of accepting what repeated behavior is communicating, people often invent explanations that preserve hope. They're just busy. They're under stress. Things will go back to normal. Sometimes these explanations are true, but when they become endless excuses for a consistent pattern, they stop serving truth and begin protecting illusion. The deeper mind notices this conflict. It senses the difference between isolated circumstances and lasting emotional shifts, even when the conscious mind refuses to acknowledge them. Another powerful force that clouds perception is projection. Rather than seeing another person as they truly are in the present, we unconsciously project our own desires, fears, and expectations onto them. We begin responding not to reality, but to an image created within our own minds. We see the person we hope they will become instead of the person standing before us. This inner projection can keep someone emotionally attached long after the relationship itself has already begun changing. The more deeply we cling to that imagined version, the harder it becomes to recognize the truth unfolding in front of us. This is why emotional clarity rarely arrives through endless analysis. It emerges when we become quiet enough to observe patterns without forcing them to fit our expectations. Instead of asking, "What did they mean by those words?" a more revealing question becomes, "What has their consistent presence shown me over time?" Human behavior carries a rhythm that cannot easily be hidden. Genuine care expresses itself through reliability, attention, and emotional availability. Likewise, emotional withdrawal reveals itself through repeated absence, inconsistency, and fading investment. When we stop chasing explanations and begin observing these patterns with honesty, reality gradually becomes impossible to ignore, and the truth that once seemed hidden starts revealing itself with remarkable clarity. The most overlooked sign is not a message from the other person, nor a dramatic event that suddenly changes everything. It is a quiet transformation that begins within you. At first, it may seem almost unnoticeable. The constant urge to check your phone starts fading. The endless replaying of conversations becomes less frequent. Questions that once kept you awake at night lose some of their emotional intensity. You may not even realize it is happening because the change is not loud or dramatic. It arrives gently, like the first light of dawn after a long night. This inner shift is often the deeper mind accepting a truth that the conscious mind resisted for a long time. Many people mistake emotional detachment for giving up, but they are not the same. Giving up usually comes from frustration, anger, or exhaustion. Healthy detachment is different. It does not harden the heart or erase affection. Instead, it removes the desperate need to control an outcome. You still care, but your sense of peace no longer depends entirely on another person's choices. This change is significant because it reflects growing psychological maturity rather than emotional defeat. As this transformation unfolds, something unexpected often happens. You begin seeing the relationship with greater honesty. The idealized image you once carried starts fading, and the real person becomes easier to recognize. Their strengths remain visible, but so do their limitations. You stop trying to explain away every disappointment, or interpret every small gesture as a hidden declaration of love. The relationship no longer exists only in your imagination. It exists as it truly is, with all of its beauty, complexity, and imperfections. This clearer vision allows you to respond wisely instead of reacting emotionally. Interestingly, this inner change can occur whether two people are moving closer together or drifting apart. Sometimes it marks the peaceful acceptance that a chapter has ended. Other times, it creates the emotional balance necessary for a healthier connection to emerge. Relationships often struggle when both people are driven by fear, insecurity, or the need for validation. When one person becomes more emotionally grounded, the entire dynamic begins to change. Whether the other person responds positively or not, the individual who has grown inwardly is no longer trapped in the same emotional cycle. There is also a deeper psychological truth at work. Certain relationships enter our lives not only to bring companionship, but to awaken hidden parts of ourselves. They expose fears of rejection, the desire for approval, unresolved emotional wounds, and forgotten strengths. Once these inner lessons have been recognized, the emotional grip of the relationship often begins to loosen. This does not mean the connection was meaningless. On the contrary, it may have fulfilled one of its most important purposes. The bond served as a mirror, reflecting aspects of yourself that were waiting to be understood. When this inner peace begins replacing confusion, many people feel tempted to resist it. They wonder if becoming calmer means they are losing love. In reality, genuine love does not disappear when anxiety fades. What disappears is the illusion that another person alone determines your worth, your future, or your happiness. In that moment, you stop chasing certainty outside yourself, and the deepest transformation quietly takes root within. The moment you recognize this inner transformation, an important choice stands before you. The question is no longer whether someone else has made a final decision about you. The more meaningful question is how you will respond to whatever truth is unfolding. This is where many people unknowingly shape the future of their relationships. Fear often urges them to chase harder, demand answers, or seek constant reassurance. Growth, however, invites a very different response. It asks you to remain grounded, honest, and emotionally balanced, even when certainty is unavailable. When people feel they are losing someone, they often believe that doing more will solve the problem. They send longer messages, make greater sacrifices, and try to become whoever they think the other person wants. While these actions may come from sincere affection, they are frequently driven by anxiety rather than genuine love. A relationship built on fear slowly becomes a struggle for approval instead of a meeting between two whole individuals. The harder someone tries to force closeness, the more natural connection often slips away. This is not because love rejects effort, but because authentic relationships cannot be sustained through pressure or emotional dependence. There is quiet strength in allowing another person the freedom to make their own choices. Respecting someone's decision, even when it is painful, demonstrates a level of emotional maturity that many people never develop. It reflects confidence in your own worth rather than desperation for validation. This does not mean becoming cold, indifferent, or pretending that your feelings no longer exist. It means refusing to abandon your self-respect in an attempt to control an outcome that ultimately belongs to another person. As you become more emotionally centered, something remarkable begins to happen. Your attention gradually shifts away from trying to manage someone else's thoughts and returns to the only place where lasting change is possible: your own inner life. You begin investing energy into your personal growth, your health, your purpose, your relationships with family and friends, and the qualities that make you a more complete human being. Instead of asking, "How can I make them choose me?" you begin asking, "How can I become more authentic and emotionally whole?" That single change in perspective transforms not only your relationships but your entire way of living. Ironically, people are often drawn toward those who no longer seek validation at any cost. Emotional stability has a quiet presence that cannot be manufactured. It communicates confidence without arrogance, and openness without neediness. Whether the relationship is renewed or comes to an end, this inner balance becomes one of the greatest gifts you can develop. It allows you to love deeply without losing yourself in the process, Life has a way of revealing that not every meaningful connection is meant to last forever. Yet every genuine connection has something valuable to teach. Some people remain by your side for a lifetime, while others appear only long enough to awaken a new level of self-understanding. Your task is not to cling to either outcome, but to receive the lesson with honesty and courage. When you stop measuring your worth by another person's decision, you discover a freedom that no rejection can take away, and no acceptance can fully define. In that freedom, your future relationships are no longer guided by fear, but by authenticity, mutual respect, and the quiet confidence that comes from truly knowing yourself. The deepest realization often comes long after the emotional storm has passed. It is the understanding that the relationship was never meant to define your identity, but to reveal it. Many people enter a meaningful connection believing that another person will complete them, heal their wounds, or give their life lasting purpose. Yet every profound relationship eventually asks a difficult question. Who are you when the other person's choices are no longer under your control? The answer to that question shapes not only your future relationships but also the quality of your inner life. When your sense of worth depends entirely on being chosen, every disagreement feels like rejection, every moment of silence becomes a threat, and every change in behavior creates fear. The mind begins searching desperately for signs that everything is still safe. But this constant search drains emotional energy and prevents genuine peace from taking root. The more tightly you hold on to external validation, the further you drift from the quiet confidence that already exists within you. Lasting security cannot be borrowed from another person's affection. It must be discovered through a deeper understanding of yourself. This does not mean withdrawing from love or pretending that relationships no longer matter. Human beings are naturally drawn toward connection, companionship, and shared meaning. The difference lies in the foundation upon which those connections are built. When two people meet from a place of emotional wholeness rather than emotional emptiness, their relationship becomes a choice instead of a necessity. They remain together not because they fear being alone, but because they genuinely enrich each other's lives. Such love is stronger because it is supported by freedom rather than dependence. There is also wisdom in accepting that not every unanswered question requires an answer. Sometimes people spend years searching for one final explanation, one perfect conversation, or one undeniable reason that will make everything understandable. Yet life rarely provides complete certainty. Waiting for absolute clarity can become another way of avoiding acceptance. Peace often arrives not when every mystery is solved, but when you no longer need every mystery to be solved in order to move forward. As you continue growing, you begin noticing that your attention naturally shifts away from what you have lost and toward what you are becoming. You become more patient with yourself, more compassionate toward others, and more aware of the patterns that once controlled your decisions. Experiences that once seemed like painful endings gradually reveal themselves as powerful teachers. Even heartbreak, when faced honestly, can become a source of wisdom rather than bitterness. The remarkable truth is that the relationship you build with yourself quietly influences every relationship that follows. When you learn to trust your inner voice, respect your boundaries, and remain true to your values, you stop attracting connections based solely on fear or emotional confusion. Instead, you become capable of recognizing sincerity, mutual respect, and emotional consistency with greater clarity. Whether your soulmate remains part of your journey or becomes a meaningful chapter from your past, the greatest victory is that you no longer need another person's decision to determine your value. From that place of inner stability, every future connection becomes healthier, more authentic, and far more capable of lasting. Leave viewers with a reflective message. Sometimes the greatest sign isn't that someone else has chosen you or walked away. It's that your own inner world is finally ready to accept the truth. When we understand ourselves, we stop chasing illusions and begin recognizing genuine connection. The unconscious never rushes, never shouts, and never deceives. It patiently waits until we're ready to see what has been there all along. If this message spoke to something deep within